From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered, soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I'm going to be your host for this episode. My name is Bill. Who do we have hosting?
Vicky.
And I'm Alan.
All righty. And we are having another social distancing podcast episode. But we were able to find a friend of mine that I met at a AIM data processing and analysis class several months ago, and we've been in contact since then. Ben works over at the Rogue Engineering in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. So if you ever need anything related to racing cars, especially BMWs, Ben would be the man I'd say go see. And we'd like to welcome Ben to the podcast. Hello, Ben.
Hi, thanks very much.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So like I said, we first met over at a AIM data analysis and interpretation class, and we started talking about things, and Ben started asking questions about what cars we had, and when I said we had a BMW E36, his eyes lit up, and he started asking me questions, and my eyes started glazing over because some of the questions I was like, I have no idea what you just said. So we thought we'd have Ben on and see what we could do. But first, we wanted to make sure everybody knew exactly a little bit more about you, Ben, and what your company is involved with doing. So if you could just go over that for our listeners, that would be great.
Rogue Engineering was started in, forever ago, 2001. So my then partner and I, we started it with a simple goal. We were always driven by parts. We like the engineering and development of parts to replace some of the factory rubber bushings and all the other things that make BMWs, regular street cars,
right?
And really tune them up. So by having absolute control over what we were doing, it was great. It was like, oh, let's do this shifter this way, let's do the exhaust that way. So we've done that for many, many years, and we were able to say, hey, well, we did actually make this car better, and we did make this part better. And eventually we just wound up getting into racing. It seemed like a natural progression, but not after, many, many years. We were like arm twisted, and it's like, hey, you should probably make it out to the track. So that's where we now see a lot of our customers and future customers, and we can also help them too from the things that we see here at our facility as well.
So what exactly do you do, or is it parts and service, I believe?
Parts has always been the focus. So everything from our very first product, which is our E36 differential cover, all the way to the products that we make today, it's products first. Because of that, we sort of graduated into people saying, hey, can you install this on my car? Oh, okay, fine, we'll help you. So that's how it starts. Whether you do it in your garage or in our case, in our facility, that's how it always began. So now we have, a full-time shop that we can take care of things, but we also still, parts is the main focus, because in our area, when there's 6 inches of snow outside, no one really wants to bring their car.
Yeah.
However, people in California will still call you and say, hey, I need this shift kit, I need these control arms.
Yeah.
So we're happy to help them.
Very
So
nice.
there's a team probably 50 air miles due west of you that will probably be coming over when we reach the wall, which we've done a couple times already. So we'll get into that later, though. I think everybody pretty much knows our story. So what got you into the racing area and started that little itch that you needed to scratch there?
Well, like I said, we weren't going to the track at first because we were mostly doing our parts development and manufacturing and shipping and whatnot. Us really getting into the track was sort of by accident. One of the projects we were working on, we did for a customer, and he said, listen, I really want to build what I feel is a dream car. I said, okay, let us help you fulfill that dream. What is it? He's like, I want an E46. I want it to be wide body, and I want it to be SMG, and he wanted all these things. And I said, well, what makes you think that you want to do this? He's like, well, I've seen that PTG car. And if you know a lot about BMW, of course, PTG ran their motorsports for 10 years. Yep. So he was very excited about having this built. So $90,000 later, we had built him this wide body M3. So we built it for him and called him, and I said, hey, listen, the car's ready. You want to come look at it? No, I'm too busy. You're too busy to come look at your brand new car? Yeah, I'm just, I don't have the time. I'm like, okay, just let me know when you're ready. Months go by, reach out to him again. I said, listen, what do you want to do with this thing? He's like, I'm not sure. I said, you've been envisioning this for like over 2 years. I said, now it's done. At the time, we had a lot of partners help us with the build. Turner Motorsport had done, for example, the entire cage. If you're wondering, that cage was $27,000 just for the cage. But as you can imagine, it was a pro-level cage, like they know how to build. So that was a total, spoilage, because you're like, wow, this thing is awesome. So then it went to another company called IND in the Chicago area, and we had acquired all of the body parts from a vendor that produced it for PTG at the time. So $18,000 worth of carbon fiber bodywork were shipped up to them, and $20,000 later for the bodywork and the paint job, it was on. So
nice.
And the customer was great. He was like, okay, tell me how much you need. Boom, check after check after check, paid for everything. So like I said, now we have this brand new car sitting on our shop with no home.
So we had a Skype issue, and we're going to pick up a little bit later on in the episode. Sorry. Thanks.
The tires that you have on there, probably 235s or 245s, somewhere around there?
45s.
Okay. So on our wide body car, we use 305 slicks all around.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, the thing could probably drive upside down if we had enough speed, but it is tremendous for grip. So, and we're fortunate because we have this stock slicks that we get from our friends at Pro Teams that they can't use anymore. So, we get fresh ones and put them on before the next event. And if I'm not driving the car, I'll have one of the other instructors be in the car, and they'll give, all sorts of people rides, and, and they have a great time,
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's all about having fun. Whether or not you have your own car there or you're just there to enjoy it, it gives them a chance because, again, like HOD has been really great. All you have to do is sign the rider waiver. They even have helmets that you can borrow, and they jump into the car. So.
And it's funny because we've been doing a lot of Lemons races. We've done, we'd say 2 full seasons. No giggling over there.
I know.
And we've actually taken it upon ourselves to just stuff complete novices that don't have any right to be on a track, in a car, on a track, on the regular. Like, I think almost every single race we've put someone that's never been on the track before in a car on the track.
Every race.
Every race, yeah. Well, no, Road Atlanta. That's the only one we didn't. But that was
that's true.
That was just the 3 of us, so we were all kind of rookies then. So yeah, so we're definitely happy to get people out there, and I love hearing how you got people getting rides in your hot lap car there. That's awesome.
Yeah, for the other car, for the number 40 endurance car, all of the people that drive those, they're all licensed drivers though. They either have a CCA license, NASA license. One of the drivers actually has a IMSA license. So AER is really good about that. You do have to submit like a resume, even if you don't have experience with them. So the one driver from last year, when he submitted to them, just so he was okay to race, they're like, well, what racing have you done? Like, 4 seasons of IMSA. They're like, okay, you're good.
Yeah. All right, you're in.
Yeah,
Nice.
pretty much.
Yeah, I do remember the Hooked on Hooked
Oh,
on
on
driving course that we actually attended. They had some really impressive cars there. Remember, Bill?
Yes, I do.
Oh my gosh, they had some. I actually think they had younger drivers with cars that are probably they shouldn't be behind the wheel
I definitely agree.
of.
Their wallets seem to exceed their driving ability,
Right,
but
Yeah.
they're pretty good at reining that in though. So for example, if
right,
they're in the novice group, there's an instructor always with them, so they won't let them off the leash.
Yeah, we
right.
had a P1 in a novice group.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
last year there was a 918, two Lamborghini Huracans.
Right.
It just
And
unbelievable.
and there was something like that when I had gone, and literally the drivers looked probably about 18 years old. They seriously, and I'm like, what the heck? They're going to kill themselves in that thing.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it is their responsibility, but it's also, HOD will, like I said, they'll keep the leash on them and say, listen, we don't like that behavior or do this or do that. And
Right.
they're really good about that.
Good.
So
Well, like I said, they really are about safety and fun at HOD. That's why we love
they are.
sponsoring them. We love being involved with them. Mike and Mona are great people, as well as everyone else in their organization. But that's the thing; they attract everything from Miatas to P1s.
Mhm.
So they don't slice and dice. You can bring anything with four wheels pretty much as long as it's safe.
Excellent. So, assuming that there is a 2020 schedule, do you have an upcoming schedule in mind for what you guys will be doing?
At the moment, it was mostly most of AER's schedule.
Okay.
Like I said, we started off in Road Atlanta, and that was great. But then, of course, HOD was canceled at the end of this month. Pit race was just canceled in the beginning of April. So
Yep.
we'll just have to see, what happens. We try to limit how much we really go out to, because obviously we have to be here
Right.
at the shop, making money and running a business. So,
That's
but we
always better.
try to balance it out.
Excellent. So, I guess one of the things we wanted to focus on, since you kind of go after a lot of the cars that you do are BMWs, is we could go into the different types of BMWs in case somebody's out there looking for a car. Basically, I guess we probably start talking like E30s, then E36s, then E46s, and then I think we start getting towards the more electronically advanced BMWs, from what I can tell. I'm not fully fluent in this, and then non-3 Series. I guess there's some of those that could be of interest. Would you like to get into that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think if you break it down, it really does become more of a financial decision, how
Mhm.
much you're willing to put onto the track. I should preface by saying that I love all BMWs, but I think that some BMWs maybe shouldn't be on the track. Like for example, if you have an E30, here's a car that's potentially very old and I'm not sure how safe it is, and maybe some brake lines might be rusty or whatnot. I'm not
Mhm.
saying you don't have to enjoy it. You can, but I don't know if that's the place you want to discover. Like, oh, maybe I should have replaced that brake booster. I can't get anymore.
Take precautions.
Yeah. There's too many things that may become a liability.
Okay.
E36 are great because there's so many of them out there, because there's lots of them. There's lots of parts. But again, you don't want to go to the track and have to work on the car. We don't. We want to go to the track to drive. I think as most do.
That
But,
is the goal.
Sometimes we get there and we wind up working on cars, not ours, but somebody else's. And we bring lots of parts in our trailer just in case. And I always talk to my main guy Laszlo. I said, why are we building that? Why are we bringing that? We don't even have an E36. Well, you never know. This guy's gonna need it. And I said, but the garage girls in training aren't coming to here. So why are we bringing it?
Well, we can come. You just tell us where to be. We'll be there.
But but like I said, we wind up helping a lot of people, that come just because, hey, maybe they're not professional mechanics, and that's okay. We want them to enjoy it, and if we can help them, sure, they can enjoy the rest of their, time at the track or whatever. But
Okay.
AER is really good at that too. They don't discriminate. If you need something, I see people walking around from trailer to trailer. Hey, do you have this hose clamp? Do you have this? Do you have that? And everyone's very willing to help.
Yeah, our car. Not that we talk about our car all the time, but we always seem to. Our car was an AER car.
Okay.
So that was the history of it, and then we took it over, trying to not only get into we'd like trying to get into different types of cars. We call it cross training, but we also thought, as we progress, we could go a little faster, and then we could try other series besides Lemons in the area, because right now the only two that we've done are Lemons and Lucky Dog out on the West Coast. But we were interested in trying, Champ Car and trying AER and trying WRL, but we didn't have a car that was suitable for that. So we thought this one might be a good way for us to have something that we could cross train in.
Got it.
So E30 probably got to be concerned about maintenance. E36, you're feeling comfortable. E46 is kind of the sweet spot right now. So
I think it is, because as I mentioned before, E92s are a little bit electronic heavy, and of course, as you get even newer, it's even more. We see some of our customers, they do have the F-Series cars, M2s, M3s, M4s, and some of the electronic ninnies that get kicked in, sometimes you can't even shut them off, or the cars go into limp mode for some reason, and you're like, hey, I'm just having fun with the car. And
but your tire spun. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. But I've seen people, they bring their a rental, like a lease car, a rental car from the dealer onto the track, the Glen. And I'm like, really? You're going to bring this thing out there with all season tires? It'll last for about 10 minutes before the brakes start cooking, and hey, I'm having fun.
Just for our audience, Alan has his mic turned off, and he is utterly cracking up on the screen right now.
Yep. So I guess we're addressing my one question. So we've got an M240i that I was thinking about with a very bad idea of converting it into a track car at one point, and Alan's been shaking his head the whole time, and you've got a look on your face like that's a bad idea. So
actually, the M240i, it's funny you should say that. As you probably know, BMW has its own M240iR.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of, we'll call it race parts for that car. So what's cool about that car, just as a motorsport car, it uses a lot of stock parts. I mean, granted, the fenders are different because you can put an 18 by 10 tire and whatnot.
Right.
So there's a lot of, parts that you can get, and obviously you'll have to change, but even the IRs, they still run a 8-speed transmission. There's nothing special about it. So
yeah, I was thinking it was a cage and a limited slip away from a fun car. So
absolutely, and it has lots of power already. You don't have to spoil it with any more. So
no,
you see a lot of those in AER.
It has more power than we have skill at this point. So
yeah, but that table can turn.
Yeah, well, we're trying. That's the in training part of our name.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the BMWs, let's say 3 Series-ish is kind of the typical, when you think prototypical BMW, you think 3 Series. What would the strengths and weaknesses be of those types of cars? Is it the chassis? Is it the engine? Is it the, what are you thinking?
If you're looking at like a E46 330, for example,
sure.
Probably one of its strengths is probably entry level in price. I mean, you can get a 330 for $2,000, but I caution people. I say, listen, you get what you pay for. If you buy a $2,000 car, you're going to have to put quite a bit of money. Subframe reinforcement, all sorts of other stuff. But hey,
Vanos.
Yeah, Vanos. I mean, people like the idea of spec racing, spec E46 racing.
Yes.
But spec E46 cars, they're not cheap. If you build it right, they're $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 cars.
Yeah,
sure.
I was looking at like 40 was what I was seeing.
Oh, at least. And of course you can even build a high-end one. Chad at Moorhead, he builds ones that are like in the 70s, and this is still an E46 spec car. So, but his he's top of the line parts, and it's they're beautiful cars, but they still have regular motors in them. So.
Yeah, that you don't need to have an IT guy to work on, right?
Well, no, they're still pretty simple, but it's all about how much money you want to throw at it. An E46 M3, on the other hand, I mean, it still has its same issues. You have to reinforce the subframe and, have to do the safety stuff. But, it rewards you. It really does. Once you get into the zone and you become one with it.
So what happened was we picked up an E46 330 to turn into a track car to put a cage in and all that kind of stuff. And then we stumbled upon this other junker we picked up that freaking rips. I know. I'm just kidding. This thing screams. And we literally did like not even quarter-inch of toe adjustment on it, and then tracked it for 2 race weekends already without much trouble.
New
Except
brake
for our
pads.
drivers,
New brake pads. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and some rims maybe.
That's
We had a little front rotor, front wheel bearing issues. There might have been some other cars involved. I don't really know. This driver's terrible. We're not really.
He wears green a lot, in case you were curious as to who that might be.
Whoa, I'm just saying. But we've had really good luck with it. That thing rips. So now we have this 330i sitting in with mothballs, and then we're racing an E36. So is there crossover from that? Does it make sense for us to just abandon that E46 or just use it as like a daily driver track type car?
Well, I mean, you can still street it or no? It's a
street car.
Yeah, right now it is. Yeah, it's crappy interior, but yeah, it's a street car.
I mean, I wouldn't scrap it. If anything, that could be a good lapping car, where you don't have to load up the E36 all the time and trailer somewhere. But if it's close by to drive to a local DE event, why not give that one a rip?
So while Vicky's having computer issues and she never listens to the podcast anyway, I've been looking for E46 M3s. Am I going down a bad path?
No, not necessarily. You'll probably find a lot of SMG cars, I'm guessing.
Okay, I found one in the Phoenix area that looks very nice.
Oh, that's sort of far, huh?
Yeah, I know, especially with everybody on quarantine. But anyway, it looks like something I need. I just think so. So
remember, there's the needs and the wants.
Well, and then there's the gotta have, though.
Yeah. All right.
So moving on. So what would the weaknesses be? Hi, Vicky. How are you? So what would the weaknesses be on the chassis or the engine or cooling system, or what do you think needs to be fortified from BMW design?
Well, obviously the subframe has a well-known
Subframe. Okay.
chassis issue, but if you're
And does that carry over to the E46 as well? Same situation basically.
E46 only. It's not an E56 issue. It's not an E92 issue.
Okay.
It's only
all right.
all E46, whether it be convertible or M3, non-M3.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But putting a cage in it, you can address it at the same time because the cage can go basically right straight down.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the other part of that, was that we were originally thinking of building a rear-wheel drive race car in the E46, but then we stumbled upon the E36, and now we're like, all right, well, if we have that, we should probably build a front-wheel drive. So we're all over the place. But
So Alan went on delay, and Vicky went walking around banging. So I'm not sure if Ben heard any of that. Alan, you went on like super delay and then rocket squirrel speed. So say that again.
All right. So we were gonna cage up the E46.
Yes.
But since we stumbled upon the E36 that already had a cage in it, we're kind of paused on that. So I think what we may do that is just have that as a street car that we can also do the upgrades and be familiar with. Have our drivers be familiar with the shifting configuration of the BMW, the pedal from the accelerator from the floor, that kind of stuff, heel and toe, all those kind of fancy things. I think it'd be a good daily driver for somebody to set up.
Daily / HPDE is kind of what we're thinking right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You already have your fully caged car. There's no need to rush into the other one. So.
Yeah.
So besides that, the subframe issue, is there any other issues that are kind of known in case somebody's looking for one that they either need to be aware of or address once they pick up a car?
Well, if you're staring at that Phoenix car, for example, obviously it has engine maintenance things that you have to take care of course.
Sure.
Rod bearings, and you have to do your valve adjustments. Those are pretty common. Then you can there's a plethora of things that you have to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's well taken care of, or if you're even doing it on your own, your own pace, you'll be spoiled with the power.
Okay. So there's no true weak spot, because I think on the the E36 race car, one of the things that people have been saying to us is the cooling system, upgrading the water pump because it goes from a plastic vein to a metal vein, and make sure the thermostat's right. And the cooling system's kind of weak for our car, so that's one thing we've been watching.
Oh, yeah, well, that and on the E46, of course, since we always do stuff to the extreme in terms of development or whatnot. For example, the last AER event, when we were monitoring our coolant temps and oil temps, we have a prototype radiator. So between the prototype radiator and our custom oil cooler, what we actually found was our temps were too low. So when we first started, into practice, I think our coolant temps were 140.
Oh, wow.
And then the oil temps too, during the race, they were only at like 170.
Oh, wow.
But
Nice.
like I said, we'll continue to watch that and manage it, as we go through the year.
Yeah, that's something. So you have a custom radiator you have running those cars? Would that fit in our E36?
Sure, it's really meant to fit in the E46.
Nice.
And
Alan doesn't like my radiator.
he doesn't like your radiator.
It's not just me. It's for Vicky. I want her to have a good time out there. I want her to have, right? Vicky, you looked at that front end. We were there together. We looked at it. That radiator's all smashed and smushed. Our resident guru, Mr. Abbott, says they should go. I mean, it's only you, Bill. I don't know why you're being so cheap about this. I mean, Vicky said go, so I'm trying. We got a guy here that's like a BMW expert. I'm trying to help you out, pal.
You're looking out for me. I see what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, so we have gone through. We don't have a mechanical fan on the water pump at all, and we're just going to set up a pusher fan through the radiator just as an auxiliary. And I think we're going to run it up from the ECU. Would you recommend the ECU controlling that fan?
Well, this is on the track car, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have a fan on ours, but it's not controlled by anything except the on-off switch by the driver. Because when you're driving it, you don't need it.
Right. Yeah. When you're moving, you're fine. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. You only need it when you're sitting in the pits and it's 80 degrees outside and you're not getting.
Yeah. See now. Oh, see, Billy. We didn't really give him the whole bio. We have a bunch of idiot drivers. So
yes. Only everybody.
And it's just only the ones we let drive that car, like me and Bill, the idiot drivers.
Yes.
We don't really want to trust them with anything if we can help it.
Oh, you don't want any buttons in the car.
Well, no, I think. See, I'm of a mindset maybe like just have the computer run it and just have the turn. If it thinks it needs it, turn it on. Otherwise, no. And then I think we're setting up some data stuff in there so that we can keep track of the car from the pits. So when the idiot drivers are out there not paying attention to anything, then they.
It's a backup.
Okay, yeah, it's backup. Yeah, right. All right, so you were actually overcooling in your oil and your coolant. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and for example, on our race car, we don't have a thermostat at all, and we don't because when and actually a lot of this data this is not stuff that we developed.
Right.
We have teams that we've known for a long time, and they used to race the E46 M3. And they said, yeah, we don't use a thermostat either. He goes, and this is what we do to the thermostat housing, and this is how we run the radiator. So a lot of this stuff is not stuff that we even had to develop. We had to remanufacture some of this stuff.
Right.
And even though it was not the hottest down at Road Atlanta, of course, in February, we are preparing basically for that July day. And it's
the worst case. Yeah, absolutely.
100 degrees in the shade. And we want the car to still run cool.
I like it. All right. So do you have a diff cover that you make for these cars? What cars?
On the E36 we do, yes. It doubles the oil capacity. And if you know, for example, Alex Rubenstein.
Yes.
Yep.
He was kind enough to send data to me, and he said that on his car, he saw, I think it was a 55-degree drop in differential fluid temperature.
Nice.
So, yeah, and that was during AER racing. So,
nice.
Okay. So that's definitely something we should be looking into there, Bill.
You got a lot of stuff we're looking into.
I know. Listen, you got him on the podcast. I just send the other on the phone.
Alan's got his Christmas list going right now, so okay. So So again, if we're going to somebody who's either looking to get into racing or looking to purchase a car, and they go towards the BMW side of the world, let's say the E46 is a typical. Could you help us compare them to the other cars that are typical? You've got, what would a E46 compare versus, say, like a Boxster, a Cayman, or a Miata, or some of the other more typical cars? What would you say their relative strengths and weaknesses would be?
I don't know enough about the Porsche product, so
Okay.
I don't think that would be a fair,
No problem.
comparison. But knowing what very little I know about Miatas and why they're so popular, because I think a lot of that stuff is really inexpensive to fix and replace engines, transmissions, and they're really great cars for people to start in racing wise. So I'm not by any means saying that BMW racing is inexpensive.
Sure.
A sorted E46 M3, car can be anywhere from $35,000 to $60,000, depending on how it's, depending on the racing that you want to get into too.
Right.
Our car is obviously set up for endurance racing, but there's a lot of cars out there set up for sprint racing. So,
okay.
But depends on the kind of racing you want to get into.
But I think perceptually, at least my impressions, we have a couple Miatas. As we have way too many cars, we got to figure something out on our end. We have a problem.
No, we don't have a problem. You have a problem.
Oh, sure, Alan.
There's like another car shows up.
Alan chimes in right when I do this, but anyway, so the BMW we think of as the balance, front to back balance of the BMW is similar to Miata, but it's got a little more power.
Sure.
It weighs a little more, so it goes through a little bit more in consumables. And then the Porsche, I think, would be kind of intermediate. The dollar sign may be similar to the BMW, but the power's kind of towards the BMW, but more than the Miata, and we're just trying to make sure everybody, because somebody could be hey, I want to do drag racing, and I don't think a Miata is your number one choice when you're drag racing, because
sure,
that's not it. So we're just trying to make sure everybody's aware of depending on what you're trying to do, you may not want the car that you think you want, although that doesn't seem to stop me. But anyway, that's a different story. You two be quiet.
Story for another day. But the one thing that some others in the area complain about with the BMWs is that they're boring because they're just so easy to just drive. You just take an old junker that you caution against. The Z30 is really old. The E36 are really old too. Like, yeah, we're looking at a 20-year-old car, and you just drop that thing on the track with very minimal upgrades, and you're just laughing. Go round and round you go. And then the ease of getting someone into it, I think, is what is so desirable about the BMWs, right? Because just any knucklehead can just hop in the car, drive around, and it does pretty well. You don't have to be super good.
I think you're right. I mean, it does hide a lot of mistakes that a driver might have, but that's why I think it's important. You can't just throw it on the track and say, okay, I'm gonna race this guy. I'm gonna try to beat this guy. You really do need the instruction with it. I'm a firm proponent for that.
Yeah, instruction and at least some prep. Minimum probably brake fluid, brake pads.
Yeah, car prep.
Safety stuff.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So Vicky, you had some issues working on your car. Did you have any questions? Vicky.
Yes, you want to know why the rear bearings are so fun? Why is it so fun to do rear bearings in BMWs? So how often do you think those should lay? So let's just say we did a good job putting new wheel bearings in the back of the car. This is hypothetical because we didn't. We just put old parts from some other car that we found in the junkyard and put them on there. If we were to put new wheel bearings in the back of the car of a name brand variety, would they last us a whole season of like 4 endurance race weekends? Would you say?
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
To give you an idea, our normal schedule or time schedule for bearings is 2 fronts for every rear. So we would replace the rears, but we would do the fronts twice as often.
Excellent.
Normally we would do because I always use AER as our as our yardstick.
Love it.
We would normally get 3 weekends, roughly 3 weekends out of rear bearings before we pulled them out.
And that's running better tires than we run, like the slicks you were talking about before.
No, well, in AER you have to run a street tire, but we're running usually RE71Rs.
Okay. And what width would those be?
275.
Okay. So a little bit, we're running 245. So you probably are corning a little harder. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, at NCM we were showing 1.25 Gs.
Oh, wow. We only do that at dinner.
Well, I do 1.4 Gs usually.
Yeah, but that's at dinner.
That's not, oh yeah, that's right. I thought on the chair.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So there's a good chance that our rear wheel bearings would last a 4 Lemons race season. That was just a general idea, and I love that 2 for everyone in the back. It's a good match.
It's probably good. So Vicky's having computer issues, so we're having a computer day. Is there anything, any trick or any tool that we need to get those rear wheel hubs off, or is it just they suck and you know it and you just have to do it?
No, it's the axle stuck in the hub. That's really what it is.
We'll call it our way of doing it is showing it who's boss, but that's not necessarily with force. So if we're doing, basically a rear end, we'll call it a refresh. Those control arms those rear trailing arms are out. They're out. They're off the car, and we literally just walk over to the press and we press those bearings out, and it becomes a 5-minute job.
See, I think we bought the wrong press.
No, okay. So hold on, pause. So what happens is they bought a brand new press and they've never used a press, so they're not aware of like 18,000 different pieces of metal you need for whatever you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they got caught in it. Like they just didn't. Yeah.
But the axle, the conical sides are wider diameter than the width between the the lower ways, so you can't.
They're having trouble supporting the hub in the press.
Right, because it won't go through.
Yeah.
Easily.
Period.
I had to bang it out with a hammer last time, but it was a dead piece anyway.
Yeah, it's physically putting in the press is what they're having trouble. That's all.
Okay.
And now that once we get them apart and put them back together, we'll put a little never sees on them. It's never going to happen again. It's just a matter of, Bill, you sent us that one video where the guy had the whole thing in the vise with the torch and the air chisel and it's like the 7 levels of hell, 6 levels of hell. What is it? It just depends which level you get to. Right?
Dante's Inferno, yeah.
You have to get to the 3rd level, the 4th level. How far do you have to go? It's just, sometimes yours was like 1.5 level. You were done. You slapped that thing right off on the passenger side, whatever it was, and you were good.
Yep.
Driver's side, you still hunting.
Not so much. Well, we broke it, so we
haven't finished your journey yet. You didn't even get there. You didn't push the thing out yet.
No.
Again, learning from our mistakes.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Okay, so I guess the last part of racing a BMW for, we do endurance racings, and usually what we've been talking about is endurance racing. If you were to think about these cars and say to someone, one of the things that you want to be able to do is you paid for the race weekend, you went for the race weekend, you want to race the weekend. What would you consider like critical spares that they should bring with them at a minimum?
Wow.
Besides like having 2 cars.
I guess it really depends on your level of prep, because our experience has always been that if it will break, it will break.
Yes.
So
if you leave it home, it's fine though, right? If you bring it with you, it's going to run, and if you leave it home, it'll break. Yeah,
but you know what? If you bring it with you, there's another team that's going to need it.
Oh, that's true.
Because they didn't bring it. So, we've had things like, how about the accelerator pedal? It stopped working. Who would think about that? Like it's, in the E46, it's drive-by-wire. It's an electronic part. Of sure it's going to break while you're racing. Okay, so we bring 2 spare pedals. We bring a spare of everything if we can.
Okay.
The only thing we don't bring is a motor, because that's not going to be fun.
That's a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're talking about the front suspension hub bearing, let's say that goes, are you bringing those as pieces, or are you bringing those as sub-assemblies, or
like the wheel bearing?
Yeah.
Oh, we're bringing a wheel bearing. We're not going to bring a whole assembly. It's not worth it.
Okay.
Because the knuckle's probably going to be fine. Bringing a spare shock, is not really. You don't want to spend the money on just a brand new shock just to bring it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really make sense. But you have to go with a level of like, okay, if we crash this car, there's going to be a chance that we're not going to race it. But
Right.
If we're having a small issue, sure, we can fix it. Why not?
Yeah, I was thinking more like the wear parts, like the wheel bearing starts to go, or
There you hit it on the head, because remember in the beginning where I told you when we go to the racetrack, we don't want to work on the car?
Yes.
We don't want to work on the car at the racetrack because we do all of our maintenance before, But that's the difference between, doing it, having a shop doing it for you, or
Right.
doing it on the side between your regular job and, doing it at home or whatnot.
Right. So
Yeah.
now we've reset the counter on the front wheel bearing, so we know if we ever get to a race one, we will have had X amount of days on the front wheel bearings. In theory, everything will go super smooth, and Vicky will knock those rear wheel bearings out this coming week. And then we'll reset the counter there, or we'll reset it after the first race or whenever the first.
Yeah, I'm not
whatever
touching
happens.
those. I'm in right now in wheel bearing hell, so I am not even touching those rear wheel bearings.
It said not such nice things about you, Vicky. They can say bad about you.
I'm just saying, there's this guy. He knows a lot about these things. He's over in Saddle River.
I know. Just saying.
I have post-traumatic stress disorder from wheel bearings.
But we're
23 hours of slap hammer.
Oh my god, it's not even funny.
Like, for
Funny
example, these wheel bearings that have, causing you, nightmares and whatnot at night. Once you're finished with all this, like, you're putting studs back in it, right? Like race studs and whatnot.
Yes.
Yep.
To give you an idea of, again, trying to make it easier. Last year at Mid-Ohio, one of the cars that we were working on, it broke studs. I don't know. Mid-Ohio is like notorious for stud breaking.
I've heard that.
Yeah, but it also means that you have to be on top of the maintenance. So what we learned, just like Vicky learned with her wheel bearing at 23 hours, there is got to be a way of making broken wheel studs easier, as opposed to drilling it out, left-hand tap, and trying to get them out and fighting them.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did was we developed a wheel stud that actually has a hex head on the back of the stud. So when they do snap off, you just put a wrench on the back and you wrench out the little piece and you're done.
Ooh.
And you sell those, huh?
And we sell them. Yeah. Because
Really? So if we had a
there's no
parts guy, we could just call you up and we could get some.
Well, exactly. But there's
we know a guy.
There's no such thing as the part that lasts forever. I know there's companies that say, "Oh, look, we have this kind of stud. You'll never have to replace it." You show me a product like that, I will show you a force that's big enough to break it. Whether it be a wall, a Miata, or something is going to go into that wheel and break that.
No, and we totally agree. We have teenagers. We know just what you're talking about. We will find the person that will break that. We have friends, or at least people we pay to call friends. Either way, but yes, we have ways.
We have multiple choice on people who can break that. No problem. Anytime.
No problem. They'll get that done on lunch break.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Sounds like I bought the wrong kind of studs, but we're gonna quickly be buying some more.
Yes.
Okay. Very nice.
So that's one thing we had another team tell us, was not to reuse like the wheel hubs. Only go with a new hub and a new axle each time you're putting in the car.
And studs.
We're new to the endurance racing aspect of these E36s. So that's just some good tips there. And it's nice to know people are engineering stuff to make your life a little easier, because as the guy that's usually fixing the broken things, I certainly appreciate any easier angle we can find. It's Vicky and our relationship goes back to when she'd call me up to do something on the tractor. I got a steering column. I got to put that on, whatever it was. So I'd come over, done. So this is what it evolved into, them touching and playing it with race cars. So
Yes.
and just in case you're around Bill, don't let him touch any power tools. He's only allowed hand tools. So
I'm allowed hand tools now?
Just in case he stops by and we're not there to warn you, he's not allowed any power tools. And I think we let him use the 11 mil wrench. I think, or the 9.
Wow.
I'm not sure. One of those.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? We have customers that we told we could not use power tools, but then I did find a brand that they can use. It's called Fisher Price.
Ah!
So-
Ba-da-ba.
Yes, it's got all the noise and everything.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yes.
not the damage.
You
So,
know what? We should just put Bill outside with one of those push mowers, the Fisher Price push mowers, and call it good. He could just do the outside of the air hanger, you
With the
know.
little
Yeah.
balls that pop on it.
Yeah, with little balls
yes,
that pop,
yes.
you know.
All right,
Well,
very
you
well.
know, we'll get that the green grass for the camper, and we'll just put that, and we'll just roll that right out when we get there, and we're
Yeah.
like, hey, Bill, you want to go to get the lawn
Yeah.
for me? And
When the
He'll be so
drivers
happy.
come over, say, "What is Bill doing?" It's like, we put him over there because he keeps damaging the cars. All right. So we like to play a game on here, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we like to have you pull something from your whole experience working with cars, being near a racetrack, being on a racetrack. Could be stuff that you've actually seen that could have affected these decisions. So you have the good, something warm and fuzzy, something's working for you. The bad, you know, it really wasn't a good day, but we kind of pulled it through. And the ugly, which means things had totally gone off the rails. It was not funny at the moment, but looking back on it now, it's pretty funny. And it could be something you've seen, something you've done, happened to you, happened to a teammate, anything.
Happened
It's
to
always
another team.
good. It's always good to hear a story that people, it's relatable.
can-
You are
you
not
can
the
learn
only
from.
ones out there, guys, and neither are we.
well, if you're talking about things that happen maybe at a racetrack or whatever, I should say that any day at the racetrack is always a good day.
This
Absolutely.
is true. This
So,
is true.
You know,
It's like fishing.
It's better than the day at the office, right?
For
Mhm.
sure.
So I can't ever say that it's like, oh, I hated going to that track today. So I don't really have a lot of that stories. I know if there was maybe
so now hold on, just take it. So you're like our BMW expert. So it could just be BMW centric, like good gigs people have done to BMW cars, or you know, and like bad things they did, like, oh my God, they fixed it with fiberglass in the shock towers. Are you kidding? You know, like that kind of thing. Because we have a bunch of knuckleheads. I mean, the two people that listen to us. So any of that kind of, you know, farmer engineering is great. We love it. So I'm sorry.
we were at an HOD event, and one of the guys said, you know, come over and say, hey, listen, can you look at this guy's car? Wasn't a customer, just having some issues. We're like, okay. So we take a look, and Vicky, you'll appreciate this.
Okay.
His rear trailing arm bushings were so killed, like not even close to keeping in tow. Like not even, they needed to be replaced like a decade ago.
He
Oh,
was
wow.
saving weight.
It's just sitting like flop around. So basically, it was doing its own tow changes out on track.
Wow.
So we told him, listen, there's no way you're going to enjoy the rest of this weekend unless you fix this. So fortunately, it was able to be fixed and addressed. But as we were quickly just going over the rest of the car, and this is the stuff where it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. So looking under the car, seeing anything else, we're looking at the front suspension, and hanging from the front spring is literally, I couldn't believe it. It was like a tow strap hanging from the front. And the customer was driving around like that. I'm like, really?
Was
You
it
had no idea?
intentional? Did it flip
No,
off
no, it
and
was
like
just sort of
fell
like-
in there, or did they
it was just-
purposely put it there?
It was just hanging there. Like someone had put it on and totally forgot. And I was like, wow, he was just driving around with this thing on there. So that was probably the big aha moment.
I like it. So what was your first car?
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Your very first car. You didn't have to own it. It could have been a hand-me-down. Could have been something your mom made you drive and you hated it.
No,
It's
it
bet- it's better than
19
Vicky's.
1969 Volvo 142S.
142. Okay. All right.
It was a coupe, a rear-wheel drive, and it was $800. And we only had it for about 3 months because the first repair bill was $800.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, well, you know, at the
Yeah.
point where you can see your feet through the bottom of the floor, I'm like, okay, time to get rid of this Fred Flintstone. So
That's Vicky's first car too. The
Yeah.
Fred Flintstone part, not the Volvo part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always remember. You always remember your first, right?
You do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, all right, Ben, why don't you tell us something that no one knows about you that will surprise them?
Could be few people. Doesn't matter.
How
These are
about,
always the fun personal questions.
how about I've been stringing tennis rackets for 35 years.
Wow.
Wow, there you go.
Can I just say, as a retired tennis player, you should have been finished with that racket by now.
Yeah, I know. What are you doing? Like, seriously.
And I'd like to add that Bill didn't play tennis for very long.
Yeah, no,
Blah,
I
blah,
still actually, I still teach part-time at a local club.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
So you're
Wow.
multi-talented. We're just looking to
Right.
find one talent.
Just jack of all trades.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. Probably the simplest question, the one that we probably aren't going to ask too many more times. Automatic, stick, paddles. What's your preference?
A stick at the track and an automatic for a daily.
Okay.
Nice.
It always depends where you live.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I don't think anybody in LA says, "Oh, I want a stick for my daily." That sounds like a great plan. So, yeah. Okay. All right.
So, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, four wheel drive. What do you like? What's your?
Does it matter?
Honestly, it really doesn't. I mean, on as my daily, all the Raptors rear wheel drive, but you can't really tell. I never have to. With the winters we've been having, we never need four wheel drive anymore. It seems.
True.
So, but I'm old. I don't go crazy on the street anymore. Not like kids might do this nowadays. So.
But you go on the track, right?
We do it on the track.
Exactly. The track.
Yeah.
That was one thing that we did, and I think it might actually have worked out well. Was my son? I took him to Pocono for an HPDE while he was still on his permit, and I said, "Listen, as long as you drive like a normal human being on the street, we'll do this often enough. So don't drive like an idiot, and we'll go to the track a lot." And so far, knock on wood, everything's been pretty well. And trust me, he's an idiot. So. It's just in this aspect.
That's right. All right. So this is always a good question. It could be in your business or your dailies. But what is that one car that got away?
I know people have asked me this before. I'm the kind of person that I never have regret over cars that I've sold.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy them, and in the chances that I have to try to get it back, the few chances that I've tried to get them back, it was better left as a memory than seeing it again.
Nice.
So it's someone's like, "Oh, I should have never sold that car." You know what? You're better off having it as a good memory, because like I said, when you run back and like, "Oh, I'm so glad I got this car again," and then I think it's never the same.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good way to be. So if we win the lottery, which would be quite amazing since we don't ever play it, but if we won the lottery, we like to take care of our guests. So we were wondering, what would be your dream car for either the road or the track? Because we'd like to keep a list.
How about a 1987 Buick GNX?
Okay.
Whoa.
I gotta look that up.
That would probably be
All
the least expected answer we've had so far on that question. Just knowing you, that was not a car that was on the list for you.
And that's the turbo, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not the
Yeah,
blow.
that was
right.
supposedly they
Turbo
only
6.
made 500.
Nice.
Supposedly I don't know if it's true. Supposedly they made them for the FBI.
Oh yeah.
That was not your grandmother's Buick, but
No.
it was apparently faster than the Corvette at the time.
It was.
So it was
My cousin
available in
had
every
one.
color as long as it was black.
Now, didn't they dub that as like one of the last muscle cars? I think they were saying that when I was growing up.
That's not the last, but
Well, it was like one of the before everything started getting more complicated with underneath the hood.
it's a beastly car.
Yes, it is.
I like it. I like it. All right. So let's just say, so sometimes we play video games and we play hockey around here and you get to switch between player to player, right? You're out on the track, or let's just say if you were to be on the track, what car would you swap yourself into? What car would be fun to drive? What would be cool for you? Like if you could just hit the button, bam, all of a sudden I'm racing in that car.
And you switched into something else that
Yeah,
you've seen on
whatever.
the track or you've
Anything.
raced against, or whatever comes to mind.
I don't think I have anything in particular that comes to mind.
Okay.
Because I like a lot of different cars. I'd like to try actually a very capable electric car. Like maybe the new Porsche.
All right.
The Taycan.
Yeah, the Taycan, because we see that out in front of our street a lot because of the Porsche dealer down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep ripping around in their Taycan Turbo S. So
Excellent.
yeah, I like trying all different kinds of things. So there isn't anything I was like, oh, I need to drive an F40. I was like, I honestly think I'd probably be disappointed because that thing, it takes a decade and a half for turbo to build up, I guess, turbo boost. So
Well,
when
and
it gets
you've
there.
been behind the wheels of some pretty hot rod cars too, so that's right?
yeah, I mean, like I said, being on the track with anything is always a treat. And
Right.
sometimes, maybe a little scary because I do have people say, hey, can you drive my car and see what's wrong with it? It's like, why am I driving it? If there's something wrong with it, maybe we should fix it first.
Fix it and then figure it out. Yeah.
So sometimes it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So
Okay. So what if we said, what is the car that you want to start building your race car from that you've been like, oh, I'd really want to get a hold of one of those and work my magic?
well, at the moment, it would probably start with a E46 M3 chassis. But and
Okay.
I've been thinking about this actually for the last couple of days. What I probably would do is put a fuel cell in it, in the back,
Mhm.
but also put the motor from an E92, the V8, the little baby V8.
Oh, okay.
Put that in, 6-speed manual, and get an engine management system, so we didn't have to attach any of the electronic ninnies that car comes with normally, and
Mhm.
just route a side exit exhaust out both sides of the car, and just have a really fun, basically like a monster car. I'd have to do something with the body, get some real meat under it because
Right.
it's going to have some power. But yeah, honestly, that wouldn't pass any local New Jersey admissions, that's for sure. So
Well, it's a race car, so
you know.
So speaking of which, you reminded me of a question I had before and I forgot. With the more modern BMWs, like the F Series type cars, is it possible to code out the controls, like change? I don't know if ECU is the right word for what they're doing now, but is it possible to take those away so that you could actually use it on the track, or are they kind of essentially hardwired in and you can't get around them?
I'm sure there's a way. I don't know if it's available in the aftermarket yet. The new BMWs are so module heavy that every module needs to talk to every module. And we've even had an M2 decided to lock itself up and you couldn't get into the trunk. I learned firsthand that you actually, if you got trapped in the trunk, unless you were in there, you couldn't actually open it if the module stopped talking to it, because it only gets opened with a button in the front of the car.
There's no like emergency release inside, like a strap or something?
Well, you have to have
Inside the car there is.
inside, but you can't
okay.
get to the inside. There's no seats to drop down. You couldn't even get in it.
Oh,
So
wow. I thought you could
if you had
at
a
least pull the
battery
seat.
there, you couldn't open it. There's no keyhole. Thank you very much, BMW. Now I can't get into the car. But you literally had to reset all the modules to get into the trunk. It was crazy. So
At least when we couldn't get in his trunk, we did it to ourselves.
right, yeah, you can still pull the latch to get out.
Exactly. All right. So in case somebody wants to contact you or work with your team or try to get some of those ultra cool hub studs, Ben, how can they follow along or get in contact with you?
Easiest way is probably on the website. It's rebmw.com.
Okay.
Or on Instagram at Rogue Engineering.
Excellent. Well, we do thank you for all the information you shared with our listeners, and we learned a lot. And appreciate you coming on. And sorry we had some computer issues throughout the episode, but we keep bouncing on and off. So, but thank you, sir. It was great talking with you.
Thank you. We'll see you at the track.
Yes, we will.
Thank you, Ben.
All right,
Take
thanks.
care.
Dominating with Dawson.
You get to drive lots of different cars, and sometimes you're starting in a car for the first time. Is there a way that you approach driving in a new car or learning about a new car to you?
Yeah, look, I've been fortunate to get to drive a lot of different cars, and I always approach it pretty much the same way. My very first thing, 'cause sometimes, I mean, almost always, if you're driving a car that you haven't driven before, it's likely you're going to see it for the first time when you show up, if you're doing an arrive and drive or a rental with another team or something like that. So in my experience, I'm seeing the car for the first time at the place we're going to compete with it. So I like to take a good look around the car, look at the cage, I look at where everything's put together, make sure there's nothing that's going to be jagged or something that could hurt you sort of in the path of where your limbs or body are going to be. And I've rarely ever seen anything where I've been like, hey, let's correct this. But it's always worth a look. You want to assure yourself that if you're in that car and something bad happens, you're going to be okay. So that's the very first primary thing that I like to do when I drive a car that I haven't driven before. After that, I'd like to just sit down and make sure that I fit, the seating position is going to work, and that the belts are going to be the right length to go around my entire body. Also, to the shoulder straps are going to be the right length to go, not just around my shoulder, but I'm also imagining a little bit of extra room for a head and neck restraint. So you sort of add a couple of inches on each shoulder to do that. So you're sort of just kind of mocking yourself up, making sure everything's sort of in a range that makes sense. Like the lap belts are going to be long enough. And that sort of thing. So it's also worth thinking about looking at your whole squad of guys and girls who are going to be driving, and make sure that the belts have an adjustability range that's going to fit everybody. You don't want to have your biggest person get in third stint in the middle of the race and like, oh crap, we can't get the belts around this person. So
we've never had that happen often.
So that's something you want to learn. We had a person come to the race with us one time, and we thought we were going to put in our Miata. And it turns out this guy didn't fit in the Miata, but luckily he came to test with us. We were luckily able to test both cars, so he came and tried that, and we found out he didn't fit in the Miata. And it was better to find out on the test weekend than the race day, so we were able to try him out in RE30, and he was able to still race with us. So I say all that to say, make sure you fit, make sure it's a safe car. But once you got those sort of fundamentals knocked out, you want to sit down with the person who operates the car, whether it's the owner or the person who crews or works on it all the time. But you want to make sure that you understand what the temp gauge should look like in an optimal setting.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong, what's bad. Like when it gets to this point, tell me about it and come in. So you want to, at least for me, my very first thing I always want to know is, what does the temp gauge look like? What oil pressure, if they got an oil pressure gauge, what oil pressure should I be seeing? With the engine under load. And don't be alarmed if you're watching an oil pressure gauge and you're under caution, or you're just sort of idling to the pits and it's really low. Sometimes engines run really low, but you want to know what the oil pressure figure should be when the engine is under power, under load. So I'm looking for that. And I want to ask them, what switches I'm going to be operating. Is there a cool suit? Do I need to? Sometimes I'll have a separate fan switch. Does this fan need to be on while we're rolling around in the pits? So I always want to ask about everything I need to know to operate at kill switches. Show me where the fire pole is, and show me where the fire bottle nozzles are. I'm just looking for every safety thing and everything about operating the car. In one case, I went to drive a car and they said, hey, watch out, our shifter doesn't have actual gates, so don't be slamming the gears. If I didn't know that, I might not have been aware of that. So sometimes the people operating the car will let you know if it's got any weird habits or any foibles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like our truck, the race truck is a 5-speed, but 5th gear isn't to be used when racing because it will shear.
Right. So if somebody just got in your car and didn't know that, that's excellent information for them to have. These are the main things I'm thinking about when I'm just getting to know a car. I want to make sure that I can operate it safely and within the parameters that the team needs. So that they may tell you that, hey, if this and this happens, then you need to do this, or you need to come in. So it's good to know all that stuff, and it's good to take the extra time to make sure that you can safely bail out of the car, so get yourself all the way belted in. Practice your egress or your getting out several times. It's kind of serious. It may seem annoying to do, and you may have 30 other things to do on the car, but that's important. You got to do it.
Right. Well, we'd like to thank you for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe on the podcast of your favorite podcast source. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to cover, please let us know at garageheroesandtraining@gmail.com. Or if you could ever be so kind as to leave a review, that would be wonderful on your podcast app of choice. It could be the iTunes/Apple Podcast app, or it could be Stitcher, or whatever the Android is. I'm an Apple guy, sorry. And we appreciate you guys tuning in, and hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Fantastic.
No worries. I'm trying to find my beautiful bride who's 20 feet away and says she's ready. She always says she's ready, but she's never really ready. Try to sell, see if that's working.
Oh, we're really going. Hey, hello?
We're going live. We're going live. There she is.
Why is he such a pest? Seriously. She can't even hear me yet.
Well, she might be able
Hey,
to hear you.
girl. What's up? Hey there. Hi.
Can you hear her, Vicky?
Wait, you got her to smile.
No, that was you.
Oh, is that the 8-second delay?
I don't know.
I am still on delay, right? Because you don't trust me? I get it. It's fine. No worries. No, really, it's fine. No worries.
Ben, you're still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay. Don't use earbuds. Use headphones.
Yes. No electronics. Yeah. Yeah, you need real wires. Well, this way once Vicky goes off the rails. I mean, off track. When she tracks out.
Not our Vicky.
When she roads out.
That's a different Vicky.
Then we can know where she is. Bam. We have our own rogue engineer right here. She's a beast. You should see her.
She's trying.
Camber angles like nobody's business. You want camber? You get camber. You get camber. Everybody gets a negative camber.
Whether they want it or not.
Huh? Yeah. Open your mouth, you're gonna get double. That's right.
Try logging out and logging back in with everything plugged in.
Yeah. So just kick out of Skype and join again. Now that you have all the stuff hooked up correctly, because it needs to start the session with you all hooked up right. And I don't see a light on her microphone either, do you? Isn't it supposed to have a blue?
Yeah, it does.
Now it does. On the bottom, though, doesn't it?
No, it's good.
So just kick out of Skype. Vicky, kick out of Skype and then join again. Yeah, all right. See it. Beat it. I don't want...
At least there was one more finger than normal. You might want to restart your computer, Vic. This is the type of professional podcast that we are.
That we bring week after week, day after day.
Where is the podcast broadcasted on?
Pretty much everywhere.
It's on iTunes, right?
It's on iTunes. It's on Android. It's on YouTube. It's on any of the things we can find.
Okay.
There's like 14
Garage
or 15.
Heroes in training. It should do.
Yep. There's like 14 or 15 different podcast players that we're on, and it's kind of.
Bill, you gotta screenshot this one. That's an awesome shot of her, just like pensive, like.
I don't know what she's doing.
Yeah, just gotta screenshot that though. That's awesome.
Do I?
Yeah, you should.
I'm gonna go walk out there and see if I can be an IT person. So I'll be right back.
Awesome. Yeah, so I just bailed them out when I went out to PA and changed the kill switch in our BMW.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it had failed before the last race, but we didn't quite realize it. And then, yeah, so somehow I backfed something to make it work and shut off for us to race for the last race. And then, yeah, we actually put a new kill switch in, so that was nice.
Alan's got his Sybil Shepherd filter going, so.
I do. Yeah, I don't want that. Yeah. I had to go all the way back to like 1995 to get this thing, so it's not really sure. Yeah.
Living large there, Alan. You know, it just recently we got him to get better Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he's up to like 2,400 baud now, or.
Oh my God.
No, it's 96. 96. I paid up. I'm not trying to brag, but I mean.
When we first started doing this, we had to cut every section into 15-minute chunks, or his internet would lose.
And then he was running down into town to see if he can hit Starbucks to get. They had better Wi-Fi than him. It was crazy.
Yeah. When you're sitting in a Starbucks parking lot to improve your internet connection, that's a problem.
Those were the days.
Yes.
How long has Garage Heroes in Training been casting, I guess?
This is going to be like episode 98, so we try to do, one a week or so. So we haven't missed a week, but we've doubled up a couple times. So almost 2 years.
Cool.
So our shtick, basically, I'm not sure if you listen to who we are and what we do.
He's smarter than that.
Okay. Is that when we were getting, just so you have a little background on us, when we were getting into racing, we could not figure out how to get into racing. We are not avid car people except for Alan, but we are a spontaneous, slightly thrill-seeking a little bit.
I mean, I'd say we're car people. We're just not mechanical people.
Right. So we couldn't figure out how to make that jump. And we ended up meeting up with E1 Racers, Everyone Racers, and they gave us a good backdrop on how to get started. But we realized that there was a hole between them and people sitting on the sofa. So we decided we were going to fill that gap. And one of it is that, we are actively learning as we go. And we are kind of using this as a podcast documentary at the same time of bringing people in the know to help make that leap. And people are learning from our successes and from our mistakes at the same time. And some of it's really funny, some of it's not so funny, but we kind of share it with everybody. And I think it's just, like I said, it's filling that little bracket of the in-between.
Sure. You can always fill that bracket with oodles of cash, of course.
Of course.
Yes.
That's usually not, easy for everybody, but
we're trying to, save a lot of people from, you can almost spend an infinite amount of money, and if you do it in the wrong way, you still don't get anywhere. So we're trying to kind of balance, what should you do and when should you do it versus don't do that yet,
Oh, got it.
And like I'm in my third year right now. We're starting our third year, I believe. And now I'm doing auto mechanics, which I never done before, but I am finding out that I really enjoy it, getting up underneath the hood. So again, that's something that we're going to be discussing in our future too, about how the girls are now.
Well, what did you just do? You just pulled out the trailing arms in the back of the car. You swapped it from one car to the next.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, they were the rear suspension stuff. Yeah.
Burning.
Well, he knows the names though. That's the thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, we're going to do a podcast about
okay.
this.
All right, we're burning.
Just let me know when you want to start doing the podcast as opposed to doing the podcast.
Well,
just checking.